welcome to a special episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. But today on the show, we're not doing that. We're not doing any of that. We're talking about our favorite movies of the year so far. Yes, film critic Josh Bell is joining me for a great little conversation about the movies that we have loved so far this year. It is the halfway point of the year, July 1st, and we're going to do our top 10 so far. Of course, many things can change by the end of the year, but it's already been a pretty good movie year so far. I don't know if I'm going to call it an awesome movie year yet, although it might be. We'll see by the end of the year. And that is, in fact, a plug for our new podcast that I am producing for Josh Bell and Jason Harris called Awesome Movie Year that launches this Wednesday. You can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts, anywhere you listen to Piecing It Together. And speaking of listening to Piecing It Together, if you are not, you should subscribe to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. You could also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. And why don't we get into this conversation? Because we have a lot of movies to talk about. We only had one movie that crossed over on both of our lists, which must mean it's a pretty damn good movie. But we've got a pretty wide-ranging list of movies that we talk about. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this. And if you haven't seen any of these, go see them because there's some great, great movies. All right, so it's halfway through the year, and we have got with us Josh Bell to talk about the best movies of the year so far. How's it going, Josh?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, man. I saw a whole bunch of movies this year so far, and keep doing these podcasts, so I'm great.
That's good.
Can't complain.
Great to see movies. I, too, saw a lot of movies. I've actually, for the first time, been keeping a running tally, ranking every movie of the year not every movie I saw this year, but every movie that came out this year that I have seen.
Nice.
So we could, if you want to count down starting at number 85,
nice.
We can do that.
Wow, that's I've been doing that for the last few years, but I certainly haven't gotten to 85 yet. But you are, of course, a full-on film critic, and you are out there watching movies every day.
Oh, I am, and some I wish I didn't. But that's not what this is about. This is about the best movies.
Yes. So we are going to count down our top 10 so far at the midway point for 2019. And why don't you kick it off with your number 10?
Well, my number 10 pick is a movie that we talked about on this very podcast recently. Right. It's Jordan Peele's Us.
All right.
A movie that is scary and weird and very well acted by Lupita Nyong'o and funny and beautiful to look at. A movie that I was highly anticipating and that I think mostly lived up to my expectations, especially in its first half. I'm a big horror fan. I liked Get Out. I think Get Out, for me, suffered a bit from seeing it after so much hype. And with this movie, maybe my expectations were more in line. But I still think I probably like this one a little more overall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Jordan Peele, very talented guy. Look forward to seeing what else he does. And I liked Us, and I think you did too.
I absolutely did. It was a little below my top 10, but I absolutely did enjoy it. And he's just such an interesting filmmaker. You know, he's somebody who gets what it is to make a big blockbuster movie that we can all talk about all year long.
Yeah, and people have been talking about. I feel like I've probably reached my limit with how much people have been talking about this movie. But I mean, that's not the movie's fault.
Sure.
And it's like he's certainly very good at bringing up a lot of ideas that people are going to really dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my number 10 is the Elton John biopic Rocket Man, which I thought was just a load of fun. I love that after the disappointment that Bohemian Rhapsody was for many people, although a lot of people did love it. I'm just glad that they went so big and just so bombastic, and I think Elton's story deserves it. For a performer such as himself.
Yeah, I like this movie all right. I definitely did not like Bohemian Rhapsody, and I agree this is better. I sort of felt like I wish they had taken that further and just made it this full-on fantasy musical, because to me, those were the best parts of the movie, and whenever it was like Biopic 101, I didn't have a whole lot of interest in it, but it was a lot of fun, and I think it's a great movie for fans I know you took your parents who
Sure.
enjoyed it very much. And I took my mom. I didn't do a podcast with her, but
Yeah.
she also enjoyed the movie and is a big Elton John fan.
My dad keeps saying it drives me nuts. He keeps telling people his mind, I don't even know where to go, but he keeps telling people his favorite part was the credits when they show the side-by-side pictures. And I'm like, Dad, that's your favorite part of the movie.
That is the worst part. We've talked about this, I believe, on here before, about how that's the worst part of any biopic. Oh my God. I just saw Annabelle Comes Home and they do that in the fucking Annabelle movie. Like, come on. Nothing in this movie was real. Do we need a real picture of the real Warren? Sorry, that's totally irrelevant to what we're talking about, but it just bugs the hell out of me.
Oh, Dad drives me nuts. All right, what's your number 9?
Okay, what is my number 9? My number 9 is Joanna Hogg's The Souvenir, which is a very well acted. I think that was something I'll say a bunch, and I said about us. Relationship drama about a young woman who is in this very dysfunctional, destructive relationship with an older heroin addict. Honor Swinton Byrne, daughter of Tilda Swinton, is the star and just gives a fantastic performance. Tilda Swinton is also in it playing her mother and is, she's Tilda Swinton. Come on.
Yeah.
And what I like about this movie, weirdly enough, what I like about this movie and what also made it harder for me to get emotionally invested in it is the way that it's a story about this kind of doomed romance, and it's about drug addiction and a lot of very melodramatic kind of subject material, but it always looks at it kind of as at a remove. It drops you in the story at a point where you don't really know what all the relationships are and how these people are connected to each other. And it kind of jumps around a bit. It's sort of aloof and cold, but at the same time, it's just so meticulously put together. And Joanna Hogg, I've only seen one of her other movies, The Exhibition, which is even harder to kind of grasp as who are these characters and what are their relationships to each other and what is happening around them. And this movie is a lot more straightforward in that way, but I like the way that she looks at human behavior sort of like she's looking at it through a microscope and it's little bacteria, She's kind of removed from it, but also is understanding it in a way that the people inside of it can't understand. So, a movie that I think if you're looking to like have an emotional catharsis, it's not the movie for you, even though that subject matter kind of would make you think it would be, but just incredibly well made, and something that I almost didn't go see in a theater because it was playing here briefly.
Sure.
And I thought, I could just watch it at home, but it looks gorgeous on a big screen, even though it's mostly just a movie about people sitting in apartments talking to each other, just the way it's composed. The Souvenir.
Right on. I did not get to see it, but I've heard great things about it, and I do wish I had seen it now in the theater.
Sorry. I know how much you love seeing movies in the theater.
Well, speaking of movies I didn't get to see in the theater, my number 9 is S. Craig Zeller's Dragged Across Concrete, which I actually did really like. There was a lot of back and forth about whether or not this movie is glorifying right-wing ideals and stuff like that. But I really don't think that's what it is. I think that this movie is just a great old-school cop movie with a couple of great performances at the center of it. And, I think the fun moments are really fun, and then it's just also really heavy, and it's, for anyone who's kind of a gore fan as well, it's got plenty of that as well, as his movies do tend to have. Overall, I absolutely really, really loved it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I definitely have that on my list, and I missed it when it was here in theaters, and you also did.
I know. You didn't warn me that it was actually in theaters,
I
Josh.
know, it was very quiet release here in theaters in Vegas. I failed in my duty to let you know about that. Zoller is an interesting filmmaker, though. I was disappointed in Brawl at Cell Block 99, which I just couldn't get into. But I really like his first movie, Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah.
I wish he would do. It seems like he's leaned into more of that like gritty cop.
Yeah.
And the political commentary stuff, less of the supernatural horror like Bone Tomahawk was. And I like that the most, I think.
Right.
But I'm very much looking forward to seeing Dragged Across Concrete.
Mm-hmm. So what do you got for number 8?
What do I have for number 8? My number 8 pick is Booksmart.
Okay.
Movie that I had very high expectations for, and I think mostly met my expectations. I remember going in thinking, I'm going to be disappointed because I love, not only was this movie incredibly well reviewed, but it's the kind of movie that I absolutely love.
Sure.
And we talked about on this podcast, and I feel like we personally have talked about so many times, Never Going Back from last year,
Oh, yeah.
which I just love that movie. And this is a similar film about teenage girl friendship and kind of the into the night story structure of these two friends who are going on this odyssey that's going to test their friendship, and they're going to try new things, and they're going to come out from it on the other side with a renewed sense of purpose in their lives. And it's just funny as hell. It really is. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. The performances from Beanie Feldstein and Caitlin Dever are just fantastic. Caitlin Dever, I think, has been underrated since she was like 10 years old when she was on the second season of Justified, which she's fantastic on that. And yeah, it's just a funny, really fun movie to watch. I love well-drawn teen comedies, and we've had a bunch in recent years, especially about teenage girls, not only Never Going Back, but The Edge of 17, which is another movie that I really, really like.
Sure.
8th Grade from last year. And I think this movie fits along with them. I liked it a lot.
Well, if your awesome movie year co-host Jason Harris ever makes time for me, we will be doing an episode on Booksmart.
Oh, yeah. And I will say, spoiler, he hated it.
I think I fall somewhere between the two of you.
All right.
But I did like it.
Yeah.
All right, my number 8 is a movie that I still am a little dumbfounded with, but I love thinking about it regularly since I saw it, and that is High Life, which is a totally strange, unique sci-fi starring Robert Pattinson, Juliette Binoche, and Mia Goth, and it is what can I say? It's freaking weird. I'm actually in the middle of editing an episode on it right now, which should go up next week, and so you'll get to hear me try to make sense of it even a little more than I am right now as I'm rambling on.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It is a baffling, strange, but kind of mesmerizing film.
Yes.
It's not on my top 10, but it's close. It's definitely in my top 20. Yeah, I too was kind of not sure what to think about it coming out of it, and I think that's common for Claire Denis, the director. And I've only seen a couple of her other films, but I think, what is kind of my main reaction.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's in a good way, and sometimes not as much so. But yeah, I thought in this movie it was in a good way.
Yes.
And Robert Pattinson, I know you're a big fan of his.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
Supposedly, initially he was supposed to be starring in the sequel to The Souvenir, which is a bizarre thing that they're even doing.
Right.
But apparently he dropped out of it. So.
Yeah.
There you go. Random Robert Pattinson trivia for you.
There you go. What do you got next?
Okay, so what number are we on?
7.
Number 7 is a movie that you recommended to me.
Ooh.
And that I really enjoyed, and that is To Dust.
Oh, nice.
Starring Matthew Broderick and an Israeli actor whose name I am now
Giza Rohrig.
There you go.
Hey.
And I'm guessing this might be on your list in a little bit.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's an odd film. It's a comedy, I guess, about dealing with grief. And it's sort of like a weird oddball buddy movie about this Orthodox Jewish guy who becomes consumed with the idea of how his dead wife's body is going to be decomposing and consults with a community college science teacher, I guess he is.
That's how I would describe it.
Played by Matthew Broderick. And draws him into his world of obsession with the decomposition of bodies. And yeah, it's funny. It's weird. It's kind of touching in its own way. And I think this is the best Matthew Broderick performance in I don't know how long.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. On the episode that we did, I brought up Election. It reminded me of that kind of character, that kind of performance. But yeah, no, I haven't seen him do something great in a long time. It's good to see him do something good.
Yeah, I wish more people had seen this movie. I did not get to see it in theaters. I watched it at home. It did play here though in Vegas for a couple weeks. So hopefully more people will catch it.
Yeah.
As it goes on, available on home video and stuff.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I have a feeling you're going to completely disagree with my next pick as being anywhere on this list, but it is James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez's Alita Battle Angel.
Okay.
Yeah. Which Okay. So first of all, there is a very strange fandom to this movie, which makes it a little hard to stick with. But that being said, I just watched with my just jaw open at just the spectacle of insanity that they threw up on that screen. This is a movie that does not, in a way, kind of similar to how I loved Aquaman last year. It really just it goes for it. It has a vision and it goes for it, and it says, I don't care if you don't like this vision. It's we're going there. And I think the effects are fantastic. I think the story is obviously incredibly derivative of like every, sci-fi thing you can imagine, but it is what the story is. It's a manga that, is being adapted. But I just had a lot of fun with it. I had so much fun with this movie despite Josh's disapproval across the
I
table.
mean, I fully approve of people having fun at the movies.
Sure.
I think it's great when people enjoy the movies that they see.
Uh-huh.
I'm never going to try to convince somebody that they didn't enjoy a movie.
Uh-huh.
I didn't enjoy this movie, but that's me.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't want to, pick apart your pick, but the one thing I'll talk about is the special effects, which are amazingly sophisticated and yet to me incredibly distracting. Like all I could think about watching, the like people's faces pasted onto the like robot bodies, and also Alita herself, who has these big eyes. Instead of getting drawn into her as a character, all I kept thinking was, wow, those special effects. And every time you look at her, you just think, wow, how did they do that? And it just to me, it was distractingly good.
Yeah. Well, I completely understand that. And for whatever reason, and I almost wonder if it's because, and this doesn't really necessarily make sense, but I almost wonder if it's because somewhere along the line of seeing that trailer, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh, this is awful. This is gonna be terrible. And somewhere along the line, I just bought in ahead of time. I was like, actually, this does look kind of awesome. I can't wait to see this. And so by the time I got to the theater, I was on board with the effects already, So I wonder if that maybe has something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, I just never bought into it. Yeah. And for me also, I didn't think the story or the characters or the dialogue or really any other element of the movie was effective.
And I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and if I had been on board with those aspects, maybe I would have kind of looked past the effects. But yeah, I think this movie is the kind of film that will have, well, you mentioned the unfortunate sort of politically motivated following.
Sure.
But I think that aside, this is a movie that will have a cult following of people who will discover it later on,
it's this year's Speed Racer,
right? The kind of weird boondoggle that years from now people will say, no, this movie was great and it should have gotten a sequel and it should have been all over the place. And although it may get a sequel, right? It made enough foreign money that it seems like it's possible.
It did well worldwide. It just has such a stink about it as far as
that's true. Yeah.
But all right, what do you got for your next one?
All right. Well, my next pick is I think it's a French film. But it is heavily influenced by Italian films, called Knife and Heart. And this is a movie that is a sort of pastiche of giallo films. And actually on a recently recorded episode of Awesome Movie Year that'll probably be out in a while, we talked a lot about the influence of Italian horror and Italian giallo directors like Dario Argento and Mario Bava on a sort of movement of art films going on right now. Or at least I think I kind of pontificated about it. You guys looked at me like I was crazy. But this is, if you could call it a movement, I love it. It's something that I absolutely love that's going on with films right now. And Knife and Heart takes that style, the sort of impressionistic horror, the use of color, the almost dreamlike editing, and it welds it to a story that's set in the world of gay porn in Paris in the 1970s. And so it's a very progressively queer kind of movie, but it's also about a guy who kills people with a dildo that has a knife in it. So, it's totally ridiculous and over the top and crazy and funny. And Vanessa Paradis plays the woman who runs the porn company and is very, very funny, and just, it's a great character. And it's a lot of, I mean, it's weird to say it's a lot of fun for a movie that's kind of artsy and baffling and weird and gory, but it is. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's out. I think it's out now on VOD. It didn't play in theaters here in Vegas. I don't know if it played in a lot of theaters. I saw it at a festival earlier this year.
Mhm.
But I think if people like Argento, if they like Giallo films, if they like stuff like Peter Strickland's films and his film In Fabric that comes out later this year,
Right.
is one of my favorites of the year. We can't include it because it hasn't come out yet, but it's
Mm.
very good. If you like those movies, check out Knife and Heart. I think it's on Shudder right now, as well as probably individual VOD.
Nice. Yeah, I hadn't even heard of it, but it sounds great. It sounds insane.
It is insane, yes.
Yeah.
And if you like insane movies, this is one to check out.
Nice. All right. Well, for my number, what are we on? Number 6? I'm getting myself lost now. I am going to a movie that I originally had no desire to see. I thought it looked ridiculous and unnecessary, and I ended up loving it. It's Toy Story 4.
Oh, yeah.
I had so much fun with this movie. I'm not I'm not the biggest Pixar guy, and I'm not particularly the biggest Toy Story guy either. I've always liked them, but they're just, whatever. This might be my favorite of the series. It's just so much fun. And we haven't done our episode yet at the time of this, but we're planning on one. And just one note I'll just mention is just the amount that I was just talking about, the effects with Alita, the amount that the visual effects have improved, and I mean it's just amazing to look at, and some of the sequences are just mind blowing.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It's not, again, in my top 10, but I think it's in my top 15 or 20. And yeah, I've always enjoyed the Toy Story movies. I watched them all again recently and wrote a little something on them on my site to lead up to this, and they're all very, very entertaining.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're also very right. Like the way, and especially watching them all in quick succession,
Yeah.
the leaps of development in the technology is just like amazing. I mean, you
Yeah.
watch the original Toy Story and it's still a great movie and it's really fun because of the characters and the voices and the story, and it's got so much heart.
Yeah.
But it looks like something that you would now get in a bargain bin in Walmart.
Right.
Because
Right.
the way that the animation techniques have developed. And yeah, Toy Story 4, I was not as down on it as you were pre-seeing it, but I definitely thought, oh, do we really need this?
Right.
And sure, we don't need it, but it's very entertaining. It adds a lot to the franchise. There's some great new characters and
Definitely.
different uses of old characters. And yeah, I will say, almost like Alita, there were aspects of the animation where it looks so realistic
Hmm.
that I was sort of distracted. I was like, these like talking toys should not be in an environment that looks exactly like a live action shot. Like,
Right.
it's too real.
Yeah.
Stylize it a little. But yeah, it looks amazing. The like texture of Bo Peep's like ceramic
Oh yeah.
skin or whatever is just gorgeous.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. What do you got for your number 5?
My number 5 is another movie that we talked about on this podcast, which I think you did not like as much as I did. Alex Ross Perry's Her Smell,
Mm-hmm.
starring Elizabeth Moss in an amazing performance. And this has been a great year for Elizabeth Moss between this and Us. And she has The Kitchen coming later this year, which looks pretty intense. And
Yeah.
she's just a great actress. And she like is this whole movie.
Yeah.
She gives this just astounding performance as Becky something, this self-destructive rock star, and it's fascinating. The movie itself is kind of overwhelming and off-putting, but in a good way that really draws you into the chaos of this character's life.
Yeah.
It's got some great music in it. It really evokes the 90s grunge scene and style and sound. Some good sporting performances. Yeah, I like Perry a lot. He's can be a kind of a polarizing filmmaker. I think there's some critics who definitely just despise everything that he does. And as a person, he's kind of, I think, plays up his contrarianism. I think we talked about in that episode about how he wrote this long essay about how Avengers Endgame should be
Right.
nominated for Best Picture, which is really not on brand for a indie auteur. But he may be a weird guy and maybe kind of a dick, but I love his movies and I loved Her Smell.
Yeah. I love the performance and I love the score. So.
All right. Those are two key elements
Yes,
of that movie.
Absolutely. Right on. Well, my number five
Yeah.
would then be Under the Silver Lake. I obviously this was on my most awaited list for like 2 years leading up to it, as
Yeah.
A24 fucked around and didn't know what the hell to do with it. But finally came out, and it seems like some people love it and some people hate it, and there's nothing in between. And I absolutely loved it. It was exactly what I was hoping, and then some. Totally just like this fun, weird journey of a film, and it goes in some really crazy places, which I love, and it's got like, you know me, I love a movie that really just gives me something to chew on for weeks after. And I mean, you can go online and like just read fan theories all day. There's so many theories about every little thing. And then aside from that, though, I mean, just straight down to it, the performances from Andrew Garfield and what's her name?
Riley Keough.
Riley Keough. Yeah, I mean, great performances all around. And then also, if I'm just going to point to a specific thing, the songwriter scene is probably my number one favorite thing that's happened in the movies this year, which is just so. Oh, I just love that scene. It's just so nuts.
Yeah, I haven't seen this yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I read so much about it, and like you said, it's been very love it or hate it, and a lot of different takes on why you should love it or why you should hate it. And I think some people have the same reasons for those things. And you mentioned the fan theories, and I read a lot about how this movie is all about how fan theories are bullshit. And it's sort of like an anti-fan theory movie.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think it's actually on Amazon Prime as of July 1st.
Yes.
So hopefully more people will get to see it, including me.
Awesome. Yeah, you definitely got to see it. I want to know what you think of this one.
I'm looking forward to it.
So what do you got for number 4?
My number 4 pick is Sebastian Lelio's Gloria Bell, no relation to me, which is his remake of his own film, Gloria, from a few years back. He's a Chilean director, and that movie was a Chilean film about a middle-aged divorced woman kind of rediscovering her zest for life. And the new version, which stars Julianne Moore as the title character, really just does it all again, but in a very, very effective, emotionally engaging way. I mean, it doesn't feel like he's just going through the motions of repeating himself so he can reach a wider audience. There's so much sensitivity in his portrayal of this character. And of course, Julianne Moore is a great actress.
Sure.
And brings so much to this character who is, even though her life is kind of sad, at least as the movie starts, she's never a sad person. She's someone who is always looking for the best out of life. And she's, whether that's in relation to her grown kids who kind of don't really pay a whole lot of attention to her, or dating where she refuses to give up or, stop hoping for some great romance or great intimacy, even though she's at an age where people have kind of discounted that. John Turturro plays her love interest, who's not maybe a great guy, but even the portrayal of that, it's not a movie about how she ends up with this dick who treats her poorly. It's sensitive to him, even as he's kind of a dick. This movie also has some great Vegas stuff. It takes place mainly in LA, but there's a detour as those characters, Julianne Moore and John Turturro's character, take a vacation to Vegas. And I think, like the way it portrays being this middle-aged woman in circumstances that people from the outside would think, oh, that's kind of sad. It gives that same sense of wonder to Vegas. And you could easily make Vegas this like, oh, how sort of sad that they came to this place trying to capture something about their romance. But she sees it through this whole sense of wonder that I just really, really liked. And again, Julianne Moore, such a great actress. So this is a movie that really came and went very quickly. And if it was meant to get Sebastian Lelio a wider audience, it failed. But I think he deserves a wider audience. He's made some great movies. A Fantastic Woman, the original Gloria, Disobedience, which was one of my top 10 movies last year. I think he's a great filmmaker, and I hope more people see Gloria Bell.
Yeah, I really wanted to see it when it was in theaters. I was really sad that I missed it. I think it just hit VOD, didn't it?
Oh, great. I'm not sure, but that's wonderful. I hope people will watch it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it. That's going to be one that I actually do catch that I missed in theaters. Right on. My number 4 is Harmony Korine's The Beach Bum, which you didn't like it? I was wondering what you thought.
Yeah. No, but tell me why you liked it.
Okay. This movie is just happiness bottled up into a 90-minute, 2-hour movie. It is just pure, just like enjoy life, man. It's the Matthew McConaughey essence, and it is completely ridiculous. It plays out like a series of sketches, and it's so silly. It's aggressively silly, And but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. There's so many moments within this movie that I just found to be just completely hilarious. It's definitely a movie I could see how if you can't get on board with these characters and the very, very ridiculous style, I do think it's kind of his most, Harmony Korine's most accessible film, but it's still very just silly and very out there. But I just think it's joy. It is joy bottled up.
I felt no joy watching that movie.
Josh Bell hates everything.
And I was looking forward to it in part because how much you liked it.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't see it in the theater. I had tried to, and it didn't quite work out.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to write something about it recently, and so I got a screener, and I thought, oh, good, now I have a reason to see this movie. It's not going to fall through the cracks. I'm going to sit down and watch it. I'm ready for it, and I just didn't like anything about it.
You didn't even like Martin Lawrence?
No, I mean, by the time you get to Martin Lawrence, I was so not into it by that point that there was no way he was going to win me back over.
See, and I could see that if you're not into it, it's the whole time is basically the same thing. Nobody learns anything. Nobody really build, it's just that kind of stupidity for the whole movie,
Yeah, and I mean, I think the thing that threw me is that you're far from the only one who said that it was like happiness personified. It was this upbeat life is great movie, and I didn't get that from it at all.
Really?
I thought it was sad and pathetic, and especially like at the beginning I thought, okay, I can kind of see how that's the tone, but as soon as his wife dies in a car crash that is largely his fault, I could not get the sense of glee out of this movie anymore, and I couldn't like the character anymore.
He's still happy?
Yeah, and I just didn't understand, and I thought the fact that he's still happy just struck me as sad.
Yeah.
So
I get what you're saying completely, because I that actually is a good point, and it's funny because I think in real life it would be incredibly sad, but as a movie character, it's just hilarious and fun to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to say, I felt this way about Spring Breakers too. I was like, no, what are you talking about?
I was mixed on Spring Breakers. Yeah, but
right. Yeah, not for me.
Well, what do you got for your number 3?
All right, my number 3 pick is a movie that goes against all of Dave's ethos about movies because it was not released in theaters, and furthermore, its director insisted that it not be released in theaters.
What an asshole, whoever he is.
And that is Steven Soderbergh's High Flying Bird, a Netflix original film. I love Steven Soderbergh, and I think, he quote unquote retired for like a minute. And since he's come back, I've been a little disappointed. I wasn't a fan of Logan Lucky. I wasn't a fan of Unsane. And so I went into this movie thinking, oh, maybe I'm just not on his wavelength anymore. And I loved this movie. It's so well written. It's written by Terrell Alvin McCraney, who is a playwright who his play was the basis for the movie Moonlight. But this movie is a lot zippier than Moonlight. It's a lot funnier. It's got this rapid fire dialogue. The fact that Soderbergh insists on shooting on iPhones, I find infuriating, but if he's going to do that, this movie looks the best that you could possibly hope for a movie shot on iPhones. It's got a lot of creative camera angles, and I feel like it captures a lot about what I used to like about Soderbergh movies, which is this kind of wonkiness about a world that I don't know anything about. It's the main character is a sports agent played by Andre Holland, and the whole movie is about his kind of deal making for his clients as the NBA is in this lockout. And it's a basketball movie in which there's maybe 2 minutes of basketball playing, which I love because I can't stand sports.
Sure.
But I thought just the characterization was so rich. Zazie Beetz, who plays his assistant, is so funny in this movie. Yeah, it just made me smile the whole time. And it's also in a weird way like a heist movie where there's going back to like Ocean's 11, where characters are kind of making plans and doing things and you're like, what exactly are they aiming for? And then only at the end you realize, oh, they were 3 steps ahead of these other characters. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think the fact that it's on Netflix either means that it was seen by far more people than would ever see a Steven Soderbergh movie,
Sure.
or that it was seen by no one, and you don't really know.
Yeah.
But hopefully anyone who has Netflix can watch this movie, and I hope that they will.
Well, maybe I will watch it one of these days because I did think it sounded great when it came out, and I heard a lot of great things about it. So.
Yeah, I think if you can get past your antipathy about movies not being released in theaters,
I don't know if I can.
Check it out.
We'll see. All right. Well, my number 3 is a movie you brought up earlier, and that is To Dust, which this has been towards the top of my list since I saw it. And then, of course, I got a chance to interview the writer-director, Sean Snyder, which, only made me love it even more. But I mean, really though, when I first saw it, I mean, the movie was just so for me. I mean, dark comedies like this are my favorite kind of movie, really. And it's just so weird, so offbeat. Like you said, great Matthew McConaughey.
The year of the Matthews.
Yes, the Matthews. But and it's just such a weird story, and it's so like, I'm not a very Jewish person, but I'm Jewish. But
Jewish.
I'm Jewish. But I love stories though that deal with that kind of that kind of the Jewish mysticism and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's just an interesting place to go, and it really adds to the comedy in such a great way, and it's such a original movie. I think I can't really say there's a lot of movies that are quite like it.
Yeah, I agree. I liked it, and I too am Jew-ish, maybe less so than you are, but still, I've certainly seen a lot of Jewish films. We have a Jewish film festival here in Vegas that's a really great event, and they always show a lot of interesting films. And I liked this movie's portrayal of religion and the way it was skeptical, but also respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think, is that the only movie that we overlapped? What an odd but kind of amazing choice.
So far, and I have a feeling it's going to stay that way. Because,
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah. One of my top 2 you haven't seen, and the other one I'm guessing is just nowhere near your top 10. But we'll see when I say it. But anyway, your number 2.
So my number 2 pick goes back to what I was saying about Knife and Heart, and is another one of these neo-giallos, which, like I said, is just my jam. I love this movement. And I love this movie, which, unlike Knife and Heart, which has been getting a lot of attention lately, I think this movie disappeared without anyone seeing it. It's Nicolas Pesce's Piercing. And not only is it part of this neo-giallo trend, but his first movie, The Eyes of My Mother, which is not in any way like that, did get a lot of attention and got a lot of critical acclaim, and deservedly so. Was this kind of austere black and white atmospheric horror movie, which I also loved. And Piercing is the opposite. It is bright colors, just like this giallo style. It is funny. It's got a lot of dialogue, has great performances. And again, it surprises me that a movie that stars Mia Wasikowska and Christopher Abbott, who just starred in the Hulu Catch-22 series, is a hot up-and-coming actor, that nobody seemed to pay attention to this movie. It's funny. It's basically about this guy who is sort of, I guess you would say, an aspiring serial killer, and makes all of these plans to kill his first victim. And he hires a prostitute to come to his hotel room so that he can kill her. And then she is more messed up than he is, and it turns into this weird version of a romantic comedy where these characters are either falling in love or going to murder each other, or possibly both. And it's got so much, like I said, bright colors and this deliberately artificial set design. It's also very Brian De Palma-esque with split screens and deep focus and stuff like that. And it's funny. It's well acted. Nobody saw this movie, and I wish they would. I think it's definitely out on VOD because it came out on VOD to begin with. Whether it's on any like streaming subscription services, I'm not sure, but I hope people will check it out. I think it's possibly the most underrated and certainly the most obscure movie that I've picked here, but I really liked it.
Yeah, I wanted to see it, and I definitely hope to see it. I've heard such great things about it, and it sounds like so much fun, like for such
It
a
is,
dark
and I
movie,
think
you
I
know?
was like unprepared for how much fun it would be.
Yeah. And I did joke on Twitter that when I finally, if I ever do an episode on it, I'm going to change the name of the show to Piercing Together. So
There you go. Yeah.
all right, my number 2 is a little movie called John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, which okay.
Yeah, go for it. Tell me.
I thought about making this my number 1. That's how much I love this movie.
All right.
This movie is it's pure nonsense. It's so ridiculous. I was not a huge fan of the first 2. I liked them, but I didn't love them, but I definitely liked them. This one just ups it as far as humanly possible. The biggest problem with this movie is I don't think it could ever be topped by a John Wick 4, which is obviously on the way. But it is just Keanu Reeves takes this character to just such a ridiculous level. The fight scenes are out of this world as far as choreography is concerned. I'm not really, I don't watch many of those, like the Asian, cinema films that they're emulating. So I mean, I've seen The Raid, so I know that obviously they're copying a lot of that style and everything, and they're not trying to get away with it. I mean, they cast a lot of those people as well in it, so they clearly show a lot of reverence for that that genre. But yeah, I mean, these movies are so goddamn ridiculous, but so much fun as far as I'm concerned. And some of those fight scenes are just, I mean, they just blew my mind. I was laughing with glee at the level of ridiculous violence, which, by the way, I did make a comment on our John Wick 3 episode that I find so funny that Keanu Reeves is currently enjoying this moment, or maybe not enjoying it. Who knows if he's actually enjoying it, but this moment of being like America's sweetheart. But the thing he's most known for at the moment is the most violent fucking movie like imaginable. It's just like pure knives and eyeballs. Like, I love it so much.
Yeah, I didn't love it,
Yeah, I know you didn't.
but I'm in the minority on this.
Yeah.
These movies seem to get more critically acclaimed as they go on,
Which is rare. That's so rare for a series.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it reminds me sort of the Mission Impossible series.
Yes.
Where it just built and built, and just people go nuts to the point where we're at like the 6th movie and people are talking about, I think on our end of the year last year, Jason Harris, my co-host on Awesome Movie Year, had the Mission Impossible movie as his number 1 movie of the year.
It was my number 2 or 3.
Right.
Yeah.
And I never was really that into these John Wick movies, to be honest. The first one I thought was fine. It was like a well done B action movie. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. And I felt like it kind of was done.
Yeah.
I didn't know why we needed more. I mean, I knew why we needed more because it made a lot of money. But I mean, from an artistic standpoint, it didn't feel to me like there needed to be more.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's gotten so played out at this point. I mean, to me, the violence, the stunts and stuff are kind of repetitive. The more they add to the mythology, which is just so absurd.
It's insane.
Is just makes every bit that they add to me makes it less appealing. What I liked about the first movie is that it was simple.
Right. It's not simple anymore.
His dog, they took his car, he wants revenge, boom, end of story. And now you've got all these secret underground organizations and different factions and leaders, and I could not. With this movie, but
another thing you got to remember though is that it's not only great for a violence fan such as myself, but a dog person such as myself. I mean, just the dog moments are just some of the. I mean, they're insane. They're so much fun. Those dog moments. I don't know. I've said before I would watch 90-minute documentary on just how they train those dogs. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think there were some great. I wasn't that into the dog scenes, but I think early in the film there were some great sequences. The one in the barn or the stables with the horses.
Oh, the horses, yeah.
Yeah, and the one with all the, you mentioned knives and eyeballs, where they're in the, like, is it a library or a museum or something?
It was a museum of weapons, I think. Like, they had, like, gun parts and stuff. And
right.
Knives and all that.
I like those scenes a lot. I felt, and those were both towards the beginning of the movie, and I kind of felt like it never lived up to that. And these movies get longer each time, too.
Well, that's the trend in general, I think.
Yeah. So whatever.
Yeah. Well, we're on to our number ones. So, what do you got for your number one,
So
Josh?
my number one is a movie I'm pretty sure that you have not seen,
Mhm.
and again that a lot of people have not seen, and that is Laszlo Nemes's Sunset. He's a Hungarian filmmaker who made a movie a few years ago that got a lot more attention called Son of Saul, which
Mm.
I believe won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film, or at least was nominated, and was highly critically acclaimed. It was a Holocaust film, but he found a way to put a different sort of spin on it. There's so many movies like that, and the character in that movie was Sonderkommando, the Jews who were sort of commissioned by the Nazis to help things along at concentration camps. And the visual style of that movie, where he keeps the camera close, like really close, on the face of the main character virtually all the time,
Mm.
so that all of this horrific stuff is happening right around him, but you don't see it.
Hmm.
And you're just along with him the whole time. And it really gives you a new perspective on what it would have been like to be experiencing this at the time that it happened without the historical awareness
Mm.
that we bring to a movie like that. So that's that movie, Son of
Okay.
Saul, which was great and was acclaimed. And to me, the fascinating thing about Sunset is that he goes from this movie about one of the probably the most significant historical event of the last 100+ years or something, to a movie about a hat store. And this movie takes place in Budapest in Hungary, and he's Hungarian, the director. Takes place in Budapest, and I think it's 1910, 12, something like that, in the time leading right up to World War I.
Mm.
And it is about this woman played by Julia Jakob, I think is how you pronounce her name. Amazing performance from her. She's an orphan who she's now maybe 19 or 20 years old, returns to the city where her family has owned this luxury hat store for generations. And her parents were killed in a car crash when she was very, very, very young, and she was sent away to live with relatives, and she comes back and she wants to kind of return to the family business. And this sounds like the most boring fucking thing you can possibly imagine.
Sure.
And yet he shoots it in the same way that he shot Son of Saul. So it's all from her perspective. And it begins with her just coming in and saying, "Can you hire me on at this store to design some hats?" And from there, it becomes this odyssey into this sort of criminal underworld of Budapest and these revolutionaries that are fomenting a rebellion and all of this stuff that ultimately led up to World War I. And it's dreamlike. I think, like the Holocaust film, you don't know what the hell is going on around her. And at a certain point, I realized, okay, this isn't a movie about hats. And
Yeah.
I don't really know. She's going to these secret meetings, and all of these people are kind of accosting her and telling her that she's in danger. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell is happening. But that's the point, is that she also doesn't know what the hell is happening. And she has to find her way through this. And in a way, like a movie that we recently talked about on this podcast, Midsummer,
Mhm.
it's a movie about this seemingly naive young woman who is thrust into this dangerous world and comes out of it as like the leader of it. And it leads up to this just amazing final shot where all of the historical relevance of this movie comes along, or comes to kind of impact you. But along the way, it's almost a horror movie in the way it's just nightmarish. It's gorgeously shot. It's so well set designed, and costumes. It has a lot of great hats.
Naturally.
Of course. And again, and Julia Jakob, the main star, is just fantastic. And this is definitely not a movie for everyone.
Sure.
But it was so a movie for me. I've seen it twice this year. I saw it at a festival in January in the theater, and then I watched it again at home. And it's just mesmerizing from beginning to end. So I loved it.
Hey, I had not actually heard of it. I mean, I certainly heard of Son of Saul, but yeah, it sounds interesting.
It is interesting. It's a movie that like got critically not a huge response, but I just thought it was wonderful. And I liked it even more than Son of Saul, although I can see how that's a movie that a lot more people would respond to.
Sure.
But to me, this was a more almost original vision.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead with my number one then for the year so far, and that is Gaspar Noé's Climax. I'm not particularly a huge fan of his. I saw Irreversible a million years ago, back when it came out. I had been wanting to see other movies of his and never really actually got to them, but I went into Climax not really knowing what to expect, except hey, A24 put it out, and yeah, it just kind of blew my mind. I mean, it's again, it's another, hard to really recommend movie. It's certainly not for everyone, and I mean, not to give anything away, but I mean, it's all kind of ultimately a little meaningless. I mean, it's just kind of an exercise in doing something weird on screen, but holy shit, is it just mesmerizing. And like, I saw it twice in the theater, and it's just I haven't stopped thinking about it all year. I mean, some of the shots are just mind blowing. The performances, most of which are non actors, but then Sofia Batali is in it. They're all incredible. And it's a very strange film. But once it gets down to what it's about, which is these people tripping and dancing, it's just, yeah, like I said. I mean, I think I said mesmerizing already, but that really is the word I would use. It's just like there are moments in the movie where you're almost not even sure if you really saw what you just saw. Like, that's how almost trippy it is without actually being on anything in the theater. But yeah, it's a very wild movie, very unique. It was a fun one to do an episode on. We did do an episode on it of the show. If you check back about a dozen episodes or so, go check that one out. But I definitely recommend people that are into something strange to go check it out. It's a very unique movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I missed the chance. It was briefly in theaters
Yes.
here, but by the time I was able to potentially see it, it was gone. But I do want to see it. I've actually, not only have I not seen this, but I've never seen any Gaspar Noé films.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think there are always movies like Irreversible and now I'm blanking on
Into the Void.
Into the Void. Yeah. Where it seems like it would be like a chore.
Right.
And they're very long.
Yeah.
And so it's always something where I'm like, well, maybe I'll watch this another time.
Right.
But I do plan to watch Climax, which I think is shorter. And just because it's current and it seems like a thing I need to catch up on for this year. And because you give it such a high recommendation.
I'm really curious to hear what you think once you watch it.
So I'm curious. There's a few movies that and Under the Silver Lake and Dragged Across Concrete, all of which are like high up on my list of movies I need to catch up with for this year.
Right on. Well, I'm going to watch The Souvenir and Gloria Bell soon.
All right.
So I don't know so much about Sunset, but maybe I'll get to it.
I hope I'm not sure. I'd be interested to see what you think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our top 10. You got any honorable mentions you want to bring up?
Well, I briefly mentioned Peter Strickland's In Fabric, which isn't out yet, but will be soon. And that I saw it, or I didn't see it at a festival. I saw it to review for a festival. Anyway, to harp on my Neo Giallo obsession, it works with that stuff. It's also really funny. And if you liked, and weird, we talked a lot about weird movies. If you liked his other films, Berberian Sound Studio and The Duke of Burgundy, I recommend seeing that when it comes out. It's from your favorite place, A24. Also about to come out, and also from A24, The Farewell with Awkwafina, which is just a really sensitive, well-drawn family drama that I liked a lot. And that's coming out just in a couple weeks. Yeah, I mentioned like almost no studio films, I realized. So I'll give a shout out to Long Shot with Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron.
That was going to be my, that's like my number 11, I think.
Yeah. That maybe is my favorite like mainstream movie of this year. Just a really, really fun romantic comedy. We just did a whole episode on Midsummer, which I liked a lot. And The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which is out, I think right now in Vegas. Very well made film. Also from A24, or maybe that's Annapurna. I'm not sure, but one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of my additional picks.
Right on. Yeah, like I said, I was going to bring up Long Shot. Also, Midsummer would be just underneath there. I also really like The Dead Don't Die. Another kind of love it or hate it, kind of just ridiculous movie from Jim Jarmusch. And then I have to mention this movie, even though it's not a good movie, but it has dominated my thoughts about movies this year. and that is the insane misfire Serenity, starring Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway and Jason Clarke, which, I'm not going to sit here and call it one of the best movies of the year, but it's certainly, for me, it reaches the heights that very few bad movies reach, of like movies that I feel like I will watch again in the future because I love them so much for how bad they are.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
Quite a year for Matthew McConaughey.
It sure
so far.
is.
What is he doing later this year? Because it's going to be hard to top those two.
Yeah, whatever it is, I want one end of the spectrum from him. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that does it. Josh, what do you got to plug today?
Well, we have the podcast that you and I have worked on
That's
that
right.
I hope people will be listening to, called Awesome Movie Year, co-hosted by me and Jason Harris, comedian and filmmaker, and produced by the wonderful David Rosen. And you can listen to that, I think, as of now.
Yeah, the intro episode is up now, and as of the time this episode goes up, this Wednesday, July 3rd, will be the first full episode. Why don't you tell them what movie it is?
That is going to be our discussion of The Lion King, and the concept of the podcast is each season takes a look back at a year in film, and we are starting with the year 1994, and each episode takes a look at a different movie in a different category. So we're starting this season with The Lion King, which was the box office champion. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the best picture winner, some of our personal picks, future cult classics, the biggest flop of the year, a whole bunch of other stuff. So you can hear all about our thoughts on some of the most interesting and notable movies of 1994, and then some future years coming up. So check that out wherever you find your podcasts, and also at awesomemovieyear.com.
Beautiful. Everybody check it out. We will have the link in the show notes. Josh, thank you as always for being here, man.
Always great to be here. Hey, I'm Josh Bell.
I'm Jason Harris. Hey, Josh, we're friends in real life, but we're also co-hosts on this new podcast called
Awesome Movie Year, where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies and do a deep dive looking at movies including the best picture winner, the biggest movie at the box office, future cult classics, and more.
Including the biggest flop. And this season, we're doing 1994. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. That could be Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. We're all over the web as well at Awesome Movie Year on all the socials and awesomemovieyear.com. So please like us, subscribe, and if you do like us, give us a 5-star rating because we love you.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about the best movies so far of 2019. Of course, I had to get a little shout out to Serenity in there because it's just so goddamn ridiculous. And people really need to watch it because it's, okay, maybe you don't need to watch it, but I think you do. Anyway, let's close this thing up. We will be back this week with an episode on Ari Aster's Midsummer, which is also going to feature Josh Bell. He's been on the show a lot lately, but I always love having him, so why not? And of course, we also have Awesome Movie Year launching on Wednesday, so you should definitely check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. You could check out a intro episode that's up now, but the first main episode, which is on The Lion King, comes up on Wednesday, and then we've got 12 straight episodes in a row for you guys, already recorded, already in the can, and there's going to be coming one week after another. We're already planning on doing more seasons of the show. It's going to be a great show. I think people are going to really enjoy it. So check out Awesome Movie Year, and of course, subscribe to Piecing It Together as well, wherever you listen to podcasts. And shout out to Bird Road and Entre Dos, also on the All Points West network. You should be subscribed to those as well. You could also join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we will most certainly be talking about our favorite movies of the year so far. Lots of great conversations going down in there, so definitely check that out and come join in the conversation with us. You could also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, which helps to get the show heard. You could also just share the show with your friends. That would be amazing if you did that. We want more people to hear the show, and, you know, our listenership has been growing the last couple of months. Such amazingly big growth numbers. I mean, it just makes me so happy that people are enjoying the show. And the more it grows, the more I'm going to let it take over my life and find ways to add more content for you guys. I'm already thinking of ways to do more little side series and special episodes and all that kind of stuff. So there will be a lot more piecing it together coming as long as you keep listening. So again, thank you for listening, and here's to the rest of the year. Some more movies to watch, lots more movies to watch, and more piecing it together to make. So let's close this up with a piece of my music. There's not really a theme for this episode since it's just a list episode. So I want to play something, I don't know, something I'm pretty sure I never played on the show before. So just clicking through some of my albums, I guess here's a random one, a track called Clear View from my album Like Ashes. So enjoy this, and if you like it, this is actually a free album that you can get on my davidrosen.bandcamp.com site. So you can go download it for free.
And all points west.